to today's Value Talk. I am your host for the evening, Captain Vipul Choudhary. And Value Talks is an advisory platform wherein we invite experts from the fields of finance, real estate, career, and provide expert advice. This was founded by self, Colonel Manish, Kochhar, and Major Jayesh, Varma, Shaurya, Chakra. So Value Talks today invites two distinguished guests, Mr. Kalyan, Jayprakash, and Kishore JanaKiraman. Both are very well known in the real estate industry. They are investment bankers and have exposure to having worked with private equity funds. Today we are going to talk about a very, very interesting topic, and this is going to be the new trend in real estate industry. And these two gentlemen are the pioneers of having started this trend. But before I start the talk and we start getting difficult with our guests by asking them some very pointed questions, I would take this opportunity to request our guests join our Telegram group. I'm just posting the link so that in case you have any follow-up questions or you want to interact with our other experts, you can do that. This is the link posted in the chat box. It's a Telegram group which has approximately 3,000 members. And further, I am also posting the link to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to find the recording of this particular talk as well as the earlier talks which we have, around 40 odd talks there. So you can join these two free resources to keep yourself updated. Now coming to the topic of the day, welcome on board Kalyan sir and Kishore sir. How are you doing?
Thank you, Vipul. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vipul.
So I will start with the question, sir. Would you be able to give us a small brief background as to why there is a need for this idea of fractional ownership, what this is about?
Yeah. So I'll start by talking about fractional ownership per se, the genesis of fractional ownership itself. So fractional ownership has been around for quite some time across the globe. And in the past, fractional ownership was actually a domain for more for the high net worth individuals who would pool in together to buy, rather expensive assets like a aircraft or a yacht or holiday homes and so on and so forth. And over a period of time, fractional ownership evolved into an asset class where the common man could also invest. And the necessity for this was, to make real estate or various other asset class affordable to the common man. So by bringing the entry ticket down, all these assets had new entrants and new buyers to come in the market. Now bring the story back home to India. Fractional ownership in India is why we are in this session for. Right, so we found that there is a gap in the various asset classes that are offered in the form of investments to the investment community. We found that if you look at the investment community, especially in real estate, almost 49% of all savings in the past 1 year has been in real estate and various real estate related assets. Right. So we thought, okay, now how do we give the investment community the best of the real estate? Now, in real estate, if an yield-bearing asset, is commercial real estate is the best when it comes to yield-bearing. Now, in residential real estate in India, you get an average yield of around 2.5%, whereas a commercial real estate you get an average yield anywhere between 7 to 9% based on the type of asset, right? So, but how do we open up this commercial real estate to the common man, right? Because if you want to invest in a commercial real estate today, your entry is around 3 to 5 crores, or maybe even more than that. So it's very difficult for.
There is an entry barrier for a lot of people.
It is an entry barrier, exactly. So so we need to figure out how to bring this to a larger pool of investors. So that was the genesis of gain. We said, how do we do this? How do you break the entry barrier down and bring the right asset to the people? So that's how we started off Gain Capital. We said, let's pool in our knowledge in the industry source the right product, a product which gives you not just the yield, the longevity of the product in terms of the tenancy agreement with the right tenants, and also the capital appreciation. Now, with fractional ownership, a person who is investing into a fractional ownership product today is not just getting the return on investment from the point of annualized return of investment based on the rent alone. He's also getting a capital appreciation based on the location of the product as well. So you are able to get an IRR of north of around 13%. When you take both the your rental return and your capital appreciation. So that becomes an attractive proposition today for investors who are looking to invest in asset classes where you have a secured investment which is backed by land and building, and also a secured tenancy agreement by which you're getting a passive income, which is annualized return but paid to you every month. So
I agree to that. Yeah. So for the audience, I would like to tell them here that Mr. Kalyan Jayprakash has been an old hand in fund management. He was responsible for bringing the Fund to India along with some other colleagues, which is Belgium-based foreign direct investment in Indian real estate. My next question would be to Kishore sir, to include him in the talk. Sir, how have you structured this particular thing? What's the technical legal structure of the fractional ownership which you are offering to prospective investors?
Yeah. So the legal structure for offering this fractional ownership that we use is a methodology called as SPV. The asset is being registered in a special purpose vehicle, a private limited company. Now, each investor becomes a shareholder of the private limited
company. This SPV is a private limited company?
Yes, it is a private limited company. Okay. Each independent investor becomes a shareholder of the SPV proportional to the tune of his investment. Now, the beauty of this is all the objectives of ownership in terms of even if he registers a UDS, all the objective of ownership is still accomplished without the hassles of having to go and register a UDS. For example, if it becomes a UDS, you'll have to travel from one part of the country to another part of the country.
Sorry to interrupt here. For technical clarification to the viewers, UDS stands for undivided share of a particular property. In case you're buying land in a project where you have an apartment or you have a shop in a certain commercial property, then the registration you do is for an undivided share. Please, Kishore sir, go ahead.
Yeah. So this achieves all the objectives of ownership without the hassles of having to go to a sub-register office, without having the hassles of going to a particular place, logistics, etc. And to a large extent, what we have done through the SPV model and allotting share on a private limited company is we have commoditized a beautiful commercial real estate concept so that any independent investor, irrespective of wherever he is living in the world, he can buy a fraction of the asset without having to do any paperwork at all through technology with the e-Aadhaar registration, all through technology by authorizing and purchasing the share of the private limited company. So the way
so I'll understand it the way I have understood.
Yeah.
So there is an X property, the private limited company has purchased that property, or it is on the books of that private limited company. And now that private limited company owns that particular property as an SPV. You have created a book value for that particular property and then divided into a certain share which you offer. It could be 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees or 10 lakh rupees or whatever. And every shareholder then has a proportionate share. And the buying in is through the private limited share holding, which is through the registrar of companies of.
Exactly. So typically,
the property is already existing. You own the property. When I say
the private limited company doesn't own the property as of now. The private limited company is created for the purpose of purchasing the property. Once the private limited company gets funded, then it acquires the property. Now, there are cases where the private limited company might be owning the property as well. So there are both cases, like Kishore said. I mean, in some cases, the private limited company already owns the existing property, and then we acquire the entire private limited company. If not, the funds come into an SPV, a private limited company, to an escrow account, right? And when the SPV is completely funded, they acquire the asset, right?
Understood.
And the shares
But
and the
this-
private placement as far as the investors are concerned.
This particular private limited company, the charter and the memorandum of understanding is only for acquisition of that particular identity.
Absolutely.
That's why it's called as an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. There won't be any transaction beyond the scope of purchase and management of this commercial asset.
Awesome. Now, how is it any different from the REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust? I mean, what's the difference in structure or functionality or cost, etc.?
Okay, so as far as a REIT is concerned, so
Yeah.
a REIT is again, is subject to market vagaries. So basically, you are investing into a real estate asset, as into a bucket of real estate asset, where a fund manager will choose what the assets are. So you don't actually handpick what asset you want to choose. Now, let's say, let's take for example any one of the REITs that are floated today in the market. It's a mixed bag of assets, which could include hospitality, office, multiple asset classes, and then you're investing into the REIT. So you are not, and your risk is, basically you have no say in what is the asset that you're going to pick up. Second thing is, the reason you're investing into fractional ownership is also because you want to diversify from the equities market and you want to come into real estate. So although you're investing into real estate as far as the REIT is concerned, still you're subject to market vagaries, right? Whereas in fractional ownership, you pick and choose whether this asset is suitable for you.
Mhm.
Okay. So you decide whether this asset is suitable for you, and you have a much bigger say as in fractional ownership, whereas in REIT you have actually no say at all, right? And another thing with fractional ownership is also that as a part owner of the property, not only are you getting the steady returns, you also have the ability to get those attractive capital appreciation as well.
Would that not happen in REIT also if the underlying
So
asset?
in REIT, like I said, it is a mix of products put together.
Okay.
So here you like literally, let's say if you feel that this particular road is a high growth road, you can decide that I want to be in that growth because you are assured of that capital appreciation.
Right. So what I understand is, one, because this is a smaller group of people who will be getting together, maybe 100, 150, or depending on the
200 is the maximum allowed as per ROC today. Yes.
in a private
Yes.
limited company.
Yes.
So the interaction is much more personal. People know whom they are talking to, as compared to a REIT wherein
Absolutely.
and the investor control would be decision making also would have, investors will have more say in terms of the decision making.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Now, how have you structured to safeguard the interest of the investor? Because naturally, when you are setting up the things, it is you who will have more control initially, and the majority shareholding would be with you. And so, how would you safeguard their interest?
So apparently, GAIN doesn't own any share of the private limited company. GAIN is an outside entity, which is an asset manager. We manage the asset. The
Okay.
shareholders have absolute say on managing on the whole asset.
Okay.
The GAIN platform is only an asset management platform, and we have an asset management agreement with the SPV. In terms of the SPV, the shareholders have absolute say. Like, for example, tomorrow, in case when the asset has to be resold, there has to be a 76% majority of the existing shareholders of the SPV, and GAIN will not have any say whether the asset can be sold or whether the asset need not be sold. GAIN will only advise, but the entire decision-making powers will rest with a private limited company, just like how two people own a private limited company and those two people have the power. Here, 200 people own the company and 200 people share the powers.
I've understood that point. Now, the point would be then who will manage the affairs of the private limited company? What if these 100, 200 people are so diverse, they don't know each other, and
Very good
there
question.
has to be someone who will manage it. Someone
Yeah,
will
very good question.
meet the compliances. Someone will interact with the AMC. Someone will renew the AMC contract. If the private limited company does not find your performance to be what was as per the contract, then maybe make the required changes and all. So how do we decide that?
So for each SPV, we appoint a trustee, a custodian, and a trustee. A trustee is somebody who will manage the daily affairs of the company, who will do the filings of the ROC, who will also collect the rental, waterfall rental, and will also, on a waterfall method, divide it to all the shareholders and will function as per the fixed norms of the SPV. So the whole day-to-day affairs of each and every SPV is managed by a particular trustee. I'm sure you relate to trustees which manage large entities, like Vistara is one trustee which is managing about 6,000 private companies across the world. So we are working with some of the top trustees who will essentially manage the day-to-day affairs of the company within the scope that is defined for the trustee.
Okay. Point well taken. Next question would be the due diligence required for buying the asset. Who would be carrying out that due diligence?
Yeah, so we carry out the due diligence as far as buying the report, buying the asset is concerned. We provide the due diligence report to the investor, and we also get an independent IPC like Colliers or JLL to study the asset value and get an independent valuation report, a micro market report, and everything. And the same will be attached along with the due diligence report and handed over to the investor so that they can peruse through it and decide accordingly.
So it would be a third-party neutral evaluation, which will.
Yes. So we get the valuation done by, either by Colliers or IP or JLL or Cushman Wakefield, one of the IPCs.
Understood. Okay. Now, before I throw my next question, I would tell the viewers that as of now, I'm not advertising what I ask next. This is just being used as an example. Would you be able to give me an actual product which you have? I mean, okay, I understand the structure that you have created an SPV. You will be an outside AMC with an agreement to administer my interest as a shareholder, or let's say as a private limited company which is owning the particular property. But is there something concrete you can say that this is what we have to offer? And nothing, and the viewers are not under any obligation to say that there is a recommendation. I'm just trying to understand it, what you're saying. Is there an on-ground or is it just a paper concept as of now?
No. If I understand your question correctly, your question is that is this something that is already been done, and are there functioning SPVs and other fractional ownership that is already functioning in India? Is that your question?
No, my question is that Gains Capital, you're representing that.
Yeah.
You're already an asset management company.
Correct.
Is there a property which you say that, okay, this is a property which has met our due diligence?
Sure.
And we are ready to operate under an SPV so that I, as a representative of my investors, can,
Absolutely. I understand. So we are currently, marketing a property in Chennai, in the IT corridor of Chennai, very strategically located. We've already sold about 40% of the shares in the SPV already, and the property is tenanted by a pan-Indian ethnic wear brand called Biba. Biba has been funded by private equity funds like Warburg Pincus and Fairings Capital, so a well-funded entity. And the tenure of the lease is 9 years, and the average rental return across the tenure of the lease is around 8.9% gross.
Okay.
So, and this has been completely vetted. The land valuation has been done by Colliers, and it's so it's been completely vetted by a third party this thing, and we've already started acquiring share.
What's the total cost of this particular asset?
So this particular asset, the total cost is 6 crores.
6 crores.
Yeah.
Then what is the fractional share you are offering to a
The
potential?
fractional share starts from 5 lakh onwards.
That's 5 lakh and multiples.
Yes.
Or is it 5 lakh and then 1 lakh, or I mean, how
No,
is it?
5 lakh in multiples of 5.
So 5, 10, 15, 20.
Yes.
That,
Yes.
that is it.
Yes.
So that means you're targeting 120 shareholders.
Exactly. You're right.
Okay. Other than 6 year, what would be the other cost an incoming shareholder will have to incur? Any legal cost, setup cost?
The 6 year is an all-inclusive cost.
So this is an all-inclusive cost,
Yes,
which includes
yes,
the
Includes
the
everything.
compliance and- okay.
Yeah.
Right. I have another follow-up question. Let's say I buy a share today in this particular property. I enjoy my rentals for next tenure of the lease, whatever that may be. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, if you could tell me how much is the tenure left on this lease?
Oh, it's a fresh lease. So the building, it's a brand new building. So the building will be handed over to the tenant for fit outs by the end of October. So the entire tenure of the lease is available, and the rent will be paid from 40 days from completion of acquisition. So it is not even before the fit out is completed. I mean, your returns will start coming in.
Okay, let us, for the sake of an academic discussion, assume that I put 5 lakh rupees, I become 1 by 1/20th owner of the property.
Yeah.
And I take my rentals for 9 years, and given the fact that this, what you're saying, it's on the OMR, the IT corridor is OMR, right?
Yeah. Exactly. IT corridor is over.
Calculation error, someone has pointed out something in 6 crore divided by. Okay, so it's basically 6 crore divided by 5 lakh. They'll only admit 120 shareholders in this.
That's correct.
This for Mr. Harkesh Bahal.
Yeah.
They're not
So that
gonna
is
get 200 shareholders in this.
Yeah, so 200 is the maximum number of shareholders that is allowed as per the ROC. But in this particular thing, we don't require 200 shareholders. So I mean, we only going to take 120 shareholders.
So I am coming to my question.
Yeah.
So now let us say that I have invested only 5 lakh rupees. So my shareholding is 1 by 1/20th. Practically speaking, I do not have that kind of a say. I am around 4% shareholder in the entire thing. I own the property for 5 years. I get my lease and everything and all. And now I need to sell it for reasons best known to me. I want to sell it. So then how do I execute that transaction? Because I do not have the wherewithal to ask the property to be sold. And so how would I do that?
Yeah. Kishore, you want to take this or?
Yeah. So at any particular point of time, when you want to sell your share, you are not bound by a 76% majority that's required or a 50% majority that's required. The way it is structured itself is there is no lock-in for anybody who is purchasing whether 1 share or 2 shares, depending upon they buy 2% of the company or 4% of the company. They are not bound by any condition that says for a stipulated period of time or for any period of time for that matter, that they will have to take an approval from the board of the company to sell their share. For all practical purposes, even after 6 months, even after 3 months, if they want to sell the share to somebody, it's a simple share transfer. There are 2 options for that. One, the platform has a resale option where we take a request from the shareholder and we advertise on our platform and we help them to exit. Normally, it takes about 30 days for us to find another shareholder for a particular asset. Or if they want on their own, they can also exit. So they are not bound by the board or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever I get more premium for my share, I'll.
Exactly.
There is no lock-in.
You do facilitate, but the technical part which I wanted to understand was that I will be able to get an exit through a shareholder sale purchase through the registrar of companies again. That is the route which would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I open the, I have 2 more questions. What if the tenant vacates somewhere in between? I mean, there does exist a possibility. Let's say there is corona and a retailer has a very high chance of a vacation. So then, how do we find the next tenant who does that? running around who, I mean, that
Okay, so-
that can become a hassle in a fractional ownership, because I, as a owner, have no control. I'm probably sitting in, not probably, I am sitting in Gurgaon right now. I'll not be able to travel to Chennai, or let's say your next property is in Mumbai. I can't travel to Mumbai for,
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
So it's a very valid question, Vipul. So GAIN as the asset manager, our role is to manage the asset, which includes tenancy management, maintenance, and everything regarding the asset itself, per se. So we don't get paid any fee unless and until the asset is tenanted. So the onus is on us to see to it that the asset is tenanted at any given point of time, right? And one of the things that we do is when we cherry pick these assets, we try to pick them in locations where it is easy to get another tenant. For example, the location we have selected for this particular asset is in a junction in OMR, where there is already a wait list of people who already want the same asset. Because if you look at large corridors like OMR or the ITPL in Bangalore, you will see that most of the land is for residential real estate and office space. So less than 2% of the land is earmarked for retail. So there is a latent demand as far as retail space, small size retail space is concerned. So if at all, if the tenant leaves, then we will find another tenant. And during the period of time, because we also take a 6 months advance from the existing tenant, so we hold it, and so we have some liquidity from the advance that we hold, and during the period we will be able to replace the tenant with someone else.
Okay, so you have some skin in the game wherein you have decided to
For
not
sure,
charge.
we have. So because we have more than that, Vipul, because at the end of the day, the reason GAIN is doing this is to build a portfolio of assets which is tenanted at any given point of time. So my entire valuation for a platform comes from the fact that two things. One is the investors are happy, their resales happen, exits happen, and the tenants are always there. Now, if any one of these things doesn't work, then it reflects on GAIN.
Okay, now for all these wonderful things which you claim to be doing, I am yet to say that your claims are verified or things like that.
Yeah.
And I am a skeptic. What are the fee structure which you have? How much do you charge these people on an annual basis for maintaining the asset?
So we charge a 1% fee.
1% fee of
The property value.
Of
The
the
asset
property
value.
on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And cost would be over and above that. Let's say if the tenant vacates, a new tenant comes, so the brokerage is to be paid to a broker, and that would be additionally to be paid by the private limited company.
If there is any cost that is above a certain value based on the size of the asset, which is mentioned in our asset management agreement. Now we put a value. If there's any cost above that value, then it will be charged to the shareholders. But if it is within a reasonable cost, now the cost is also subject to the size of the asset that we manage. It will be borne by us.
So is this private limited company also going to maintain some cash on books to meet those out-of-pocket expenses, or would it be from the rental that this money would be kept aside? How would that be structured?
See,
Has it been included
in this particular asset, Vipul, because the size of the asset is very small, and that the tenants have taken over, I mean, the maintenance and everything as well. So the liquidity that is probably required is very less. So we have, unless and until it is going to be something that is abnormal due to some government acquisition or something like that, we will be able to manage it.
Okay. One last question before I get in the audience to ask their questions. A lot of my clients, especially officers from the armed forces, when they retire, the government gives them a lump sum amount as which includes their savings and gratuity and their retirement benefits. Now, a lot of these people, since they're already in their senior ages, so what they do is they utilize this money to enhance their pension, which they get from the government of India.
Yeah.
And so typically they get a sum of around anything from 75 lakh to 1.25 CR kinds, depending on how much he has served, what is the savings, etc. Since they are very, very risk averse, and anyone would be, because that's their lifetime savings, and they are not in an age to be, playing around with that kind of money. And this is probably one of the last time when they get paid with that kind of a lump sum. And they need some kind of a steady income to enhance their pension so that they are able to maintain the lifestyle which they are used to. So these people typically look at debt mutual funds, and 40 to 50% of their retirement corpus is invested into debt mutual funds for getting a regular income and safety of the money deployed. Would you say a fractional ownership would provide a similar opportunity to these people, or are there any risks which I am not able to see?
Yeah. So Vipul's, I mean,
Don't make a hard sale, I would like to tell you, because this is something where, this is the fraternity I belong to, and
absolutely.
it's not just reputation, it is my moral obligation to protect their interests.
I fully understand, and since I've known you for quite some time, I understand your moral obligation as well. So let me tell you, as far as the risk is concerned, now if you ask that whether this particular asset class is 100% risk free, I would say it is not 100% risk free. Like any investment, there are some elements of risk. But
what are those risks? If you could tell me.
So now. See, as far as the risk is concerned, the only risk here is that in case there is a black swan event like the pandemic, right, and the country shuts down for a year, right? So if you have an income yielding real estate asset, whether it is retail or whether it is office or whether it is industrial, you are going to have some cash flow constraints because the regular cash flow might stop, right? But the difference between a debt mutual fund and fractional ownership is your capital appreciation actually doesn't stop. Actually, if you look at the commercial retail space or land that is available in India, is probably one of the few asset classes where the capital appreciation did not stop even during the pandemic or even during any of the economic meltdowns. So even if you look at
that part, I understand.
Yeah. So the difference between the debt mutual fund and fractional ownership is in fractional ownership, it is not just your return. Your investment is also multiplying thanks to the capital appreciation. Whereas in the debt mutual fund, all that you get is your return. So here you have your returns plus your appreciation. And the risk is, if there is a black swan event, then there could be an issue. And one more risk is, let's say tomorrow government decides to build because India is a developing nation, so there is roads and various infrastructure projects that is always ongoing. Now, let's say tomorrow the government decides to dig up that entire front portion of whichever the retail asset that we have in any part of India, and say that the next 1 year's time, this road is not going to be accessible. Then obviously the retailer is going to renegotiate. So things like this, which is I wouldn't say is a force majeure, but things like this which are not totally in our control can be a risk.
Okay, so if I understand you, I am not going to harp right now on the advantage part of it, because, as I said, hard sell is not what I would do.
Yeah.
The risk which I see here, there's one risk which could be depending on a lot of other things. Force majeure could be a black swan event or something. Is that a tenant may not be available for a certain time. So my return might get interrupted for maybe a month.
Absolutely, but your principal stays secure.
Principal stays secure because the building is not going to go anywhere. And since the building is there, so over a period of time, I will get my capital appreciation.
Exactly.
So the risk is stoppage of the rental income for maybe
a temporary cash flow stoppage.
A temporary cash flow stoppage because of a disruption or something happening.
Okay. Just like to add to it, Vipul, one of the important aspects of fractional ownership is your investment is 100% backed by the physical asset. So it's very, very tangible. It is not in any arbitrary investment.
So let me go ahead on that and ask you a question here. I am assuming that this tangible asset has also been covered by a building insurance policy.
Yes.
Yes.
Because what if there is a force majeure and there's an earthquake and I lose my
Yes.
building?
Yes. So that is also part of the fee. The fee that we collect also everything is includes the insurance and everything.
So we have covered that. We
Yeah.
have covered that particular contingency. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I am very thankful to Kalyan and Kishore sir for the wonderful insights.